have both an India and China presence now. In fact, if a global company doesn't have some presence in those countries, you really wonder, what are they doing about those markets and the intelligence that's available.
But what about the difference in the companies? For example, in China, many of them have state ownership element. Do they have the same thing in India?
No, fortunately for India, that is one thing they've done better, is they have more on the private side. Now, a lot of those state-owned enterprises in China are acting more like private enterprises. The oil companies, the mobile phone companies, there's a lot of those giant companies that are behaving in a pretty strongly capitalistic way. But you do worry that if the signals of the marketplace and what the government wanted diverged, will they be run that way? Whereas in India, it's much more private sector driven. Now, they still control prices more. Labor mobility is lower than in China. Property sales are more difficult. Things like water and electricity are subsidized in a way that they're used in a not as efficient fashion. So if you just scored market signals, China flipped over and has been more driven by market signals than India has.
But the foundations is much more centered in India than it is in China by a wide margin.
That's right, and that's because of largely of the need in India. That is, the north of India, including Uttar Pradesh, people are quite poor there, and the government hasn't gotten the vaccination coverage out. It hasn't gotten women to deliver in a facility where they can be taken care of even if things go wrong. And so it's that gap that motivates a lot of our work there. Some of it, though, is that in the area of vaccines, India is more innovative. China's trying to catch up, but companies like Serum Institute, a private company in India, is actually the highest volume vaccine manufacturer in the world.
And did you have some influence on that? Did the fact that the foundation came in there and was interested in it and therefore showed some encouragement to them?
Well, Serum had gotten in before we came along, but because of their willingness to do high volume, low price, we've helped them grow. So like the meningitis vaccine that is being delivered in Africa, they became our partner in terms of building that. So they're about 3 times the size they were when we first started working on projects together.
And how about the partnership with government, in which the foundation can sort of do seat stuff and then the government can bring it up in scale?
Yeah, we've had great success with a number of programs. For AIDS prevention in India, what turned out to be the best approach was to create communities of the people who are at risk, including sex workers. And by creating those communities and having peers educate each other about what safe practice was, AIDS rates in India have actually gone down. And that's a case where we came in, created the initial framework, and now we're turning a lot of that over to the government, and so far they've done a really good job of maintaining the strength of those programs.
So India, as a developing nation, is a model for what can be done in partnership.
Absolutely. The fact that it's a democracy, that the fact states are seeing each other, trying to catch up, it's a very positive dynamic.
How much corruption?
Well, there's always going to be some corruption. What you want to do is you want to design systems that make it harder for there to be corruption, where you can really trace the money down to the recipient of that money. That's partly why we'd like to get digital currencies on cell phones, so you don't have as much where somebody else can collect it along the way.
You'd like to get that done. What's necessary for that to happen?
The cell phones are now getting powerful enough. The government has to set some standards. There's a lot of energy being put into this in India. It's happened only in Kenya. It's the only developing country that has this digital currency. And now that India sees that it's happened in one place, they're trying to clear out the regulations and get it going.
And how does it work in Kenya?
You can actually use your cell phone and send money to other people, like a relative that's out in the rural area, or if you go into a store and buy something, you can just do that on the cell phone.
And they take their cell phone in to do things, buy products or whatever?
Exactly. And so it makes all these financial issues, the fees to move money around, to have loans of various types, it makes it a lot simpler when you're not having to handle paper currency.
I mean, how do they view you over there in India?
Well,
I mean,
they're always very nice.
Well, I know that, but do they have a name for you? Or are you just Bill Gates? Does it, you know,
well,
are you
Gates,
our great friend, Bill Gates? Are you...
I wouldn't say it's so much me personally,
but